and online.
We once had a teacher, the teacher of teachers. He changed the world for the better and made us better creatures. Oh Allah, we've shamed ourselves, we've strayed from Al-Mu'allim. Surely we've wronged ourselves, what will we say in front of him? Mu'allim. He was Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Muhammad, mercy upon mankind, teacher of all mankind. Aba al-Qasim, ya Habibi, ya Muhammad, ya Shafi'i, ya Muhammad, خير خلق الله محمد. يا مصطفى يا إمام المرسلين، يا مصطفى يا شفيع العالمين، يا مصطفى يا إمام المرسلين، يا مصطفى يا شفيع العالمين. He prayed while others slept, while others ate, he'd fast. While they would laugh, he wept until he breathed his last. His only wish was for us to be among the ones who prosper. Ya Mu'allim, peace be upon you, truly you are our teacher. Mu'allim. He was Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Muhammad, mercy upon mankind, teacher of all mankind. Taught us to be just and kind, and to feed the poor and hungry, help the wafer and the orphan child, and to not be cruel and miserly. His speech was soft and gentle, like a mother stroking her child. His mercy and compassion were most radiant when he smiled. He was Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Muhammad, mercy upon mankind. He was Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Muhammad, mercy upon mankind, teacher of all mankind. Aba al-Qasim, ya Habibi, ya Muhammad, ya Shafi'i, ya Muhammad, خير خلق الله محمد. يا مصطفى يا إمام المرسلين، يا مصطفى يا شفيع العالمين، يا مصطفى يا إمام المرسلين، يا مصطفى يا شفيع العالمين، يا مصطفى يا إمام
for the light, and you see no hope inside, be sure and have no doubt, he is always close to you. He's the one who knows you best. He knows what's in your heart. You'll find your peace at last if you just have faith in him. You're always in my heart and mind. Your name is mentioned every day. I follow you no matter what. My biggest wish is to see you one day. 'Cause I believe, I believe, I believe. Do you believe? Oh, do you believe?
'Cause I believe in a man who used to be so full of love and harmony. He fought for peace and liberty, and never would he hurt anything. He was a mercy for mankind, a teacher till the end of time. No creature could be compared with him, so full of light and blessings. You're always in my heart and mind. Your name is mentioned every day. I'll follow you no matter what. God wills for me one day. 'Cause I believe, I believe.
Assalamu alaikum and good evening. You are listening to Let's Talk live on Salam Radio 106.2 FM. I'm your host Akil with my co-host Ishfat. Assalamu alaikum, bro.
Walaikum assalam.
Good to have you in the studio with us this evening. So tonight we begin with a troubling but necessary topic: grooming gangs and the institutional failures surrounding them. A recent report spearheaded by Baroness Louise Casey has reignited public scrutiny on grooming gangs in the UK. The findings have uncovered what she calls a culture of denial and fear among public bodies, particularly within police forces and local authorities. One of the most shocking revelations: over 68% of child exploitation (CSE) case files reviewed in the audit failed to record the ethnicity of suspects. Baroness Casey said this was due to fears of being seen as racist. Institutions avoided making links between cases when they involved men from similar ethnic backgrounds, often of South Asian heritage, primarily Pakistani. This is reminiscent of the 2014 J report in Rotherham, which exposed that over 1,400 children were sexually exploited between 1997 and 2013, and that concerns raised by frontline workers were systematically ignored. Further examples include Telford. At least 1,000 girls were targeted over a 40-year period. Rochdale led to high-profile trials in 2012, where 9 men were convicted. And of course, Oxford, Operation Bullfinch, uncovered networks abusing young girls in care. So, the question is, why did it continue? Well, whistleblowers have consistently said that local councils and police were worried about stoking racial tensions. This, combined with bureaucratic fragmentation and a lack of resources, allowed predators to act with impunity. The Casey report recommends Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, the Casey report recommendations, recommends, and this is something Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, has pledged to adopt all 12 recommendations, which include proper ethnicity data collection, more robust child safeguarding audits, reopening of hundreds of historic cases, increased funding for survivor support services. I have to say, Ishfaq, it has been a damning report. And some activists say this is still too little too late. Sammy Woodhouse, a Rotherham survivor, said, "It's not enough to admit mistakes. We need to see arrests, prosecutions and resignations." Others caution against overgeneralizing or racial profiling entire communities. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, look, from day one, while this has been in Parliament or in the media over the last 6 months, I've always supported the idea of a national inquiry. The victims are the ones that matter in this. The unfortunate fact is that yes, racial data wasn't collected, but in the same hand, the same reports also said that 4%, 5% of the perpetrators were of an ethnic minority, Pakistani, Kashmiri. And I've always said, what about the other 94% of victims? They all deserve justice, right? So there was a little bit of confusion because for me, it felt like all the other perpetrators were being ignored by this, inquiry. And people kept saying, look, Pakistani grooming gangs and, Kashmiri grooming gangs, etc. So, which almost felt like almost like an attack on ethnic communities. But then when I look at it from the other hand, it's almost the reason why this report had to be conducted and initiated, should we say, because those same people that were in power did give those perpetrators almost a free hand, like you said, right? Because they're worried about being labelled as racist or whatever. So the fact is that our communities have to own the fact that this has happened, and whether it's happened under our noses, whether people knew, hopefully all that comes out in this report. Because the other thing I would say from what's been said recently, people are trying to associate it with Muslims, okay? Because predominantly, obviously, a lot of Pakistanis are Muslims. So first thing, obviously, to highlight is perpetrators are only 4 or 5% that this report is looking at. I want national inquiries to include all grooming gangs, all paedophiles, all child abuse rings, regardless of where they may be, what colour or creed they are. All victims deserve justice. The extreme right within the country and those who are Islamophobic are trying to use this as an excuse, again, to pinpoint and cause racial tensions. Okay, we can't allow that. We have to go bigger than that, and we have to go beyond that and say, look, at the end of the day, what matters with all of this is the victims. And our communities, like I just said to you, need to support this investigations and whatever the findings are, but also own it in a way, wear it and say, look, if this has happened in Rochdale, Rotherham, wherever, and other places where there is Pakistani men that have been involved in these heinous crimes, not only do they need to be called to account and, as has happened recently, I think there were 6 or 8 that were put away. I hope the book is thrown at them. And to be honest with you, if you look at my, maybe it's a bit extreme, I can't probably say it on radio, but many will share that view that, maybe the penalty of castration should be brought in, chemical castration for people who commit these sort of crimes against women and children. That is extreme, okay? But if that will hopefully put people off doing anything like this or thinking about it, we as a community maybe need to look at why did it happen? Why did those Asian men take advantage of these, women and children?
Some might say that we are, as a community, not openly talking about this, and one of the reasons for that is because, this is still taboo within the communities. There are people who are committing these very serious crimes, and then when it comes to community accountability, so where there's certainly where the discussion that needs to be taking place about what is happening here, how can it be prevented, what are the signs, where does it feel safe to go and report something like this? Leading up to the show, I was speaking to a number of people who also said to me, we don't see Asian people talk about this. We have only seen non-Asian people talking about this all over the place, except politicians. Why is it that this subject isn't being openly spoken about? And I was thinking about that actually, and I was like, like you just said, Ishfaq, it's really, really important that we do talk about this. I mean, we're doing this today, right now, but this should be, this should spark a discussion within all of the Asian community about how, if you see something like this taking place, or if you know someone who's done this and have, you should feel safe to report something like this. But I think outside of that, knowing that this has happened, owning that element, by not just saying, oh, well, it's just a few people, but it has happened.
Well, let's get something else clear as well. Although predominantly it was white girls and children,
Yeah.
there is cases where Asian girls,
Correct.
Pakistani girls have
Yeah.
also been groomed. And yes, it is a taboo subject, maybe culturally. The one thing that does frustrate me a little bit is to say people's kind of try to confuse this and think that within the Muslim religion, Islam, that this sort of thing is allowed when it's not.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Let's clarify that. The mixing cultural differences with religious
Yes.
ideas
Correct.
or differences. The fact there is, and again, we talked about it last time we were on, frustratingly, where people bring up 1400 years ago and the history of Islam, etc. I can say, Kat, look, I'm no imam, I'm no specialist on, I'm not a teacher or a scholar when it comes to Islam, but we've been taught it all our lives, yeah, and we're never ever taught that this is okay. The one thing I've been taught as a Muslim is that women have a very high status in Islam. The fact that women, were given a lot of control and respect 1400 years ago, in the sense that they could own land, property. A husband has to give his earnings towards his wife, but she doesn't have to give anything of hers towards her husband. She can own property. She had voting rights. Women have, and all that stuff. We're talking 1400 years ago. So they need to dissociate Islam from this for a start, because it has nothing to do with religion. Had these men or perpetrators followed the guidance given in Islam, they wouldn't be carrying out these heinous acts.
This is true.
That's first, because it goes against the basic, sex before marriage and all that kind of stuff. It goes beyond, every single sin that we can mention within Islam when it comes to this kind of stuff. It's not allowed. So then it comes back to the cultural stuff. Now, I'll tell you what else I would like them to find out is the where these people were born. Okay, where are they from? Were they born here, or did they come over? Were they, were they economic migrants? Were they married and came over as, on spouse visas? Because people that were born here, and some might argue with me here, but I was born here, you were born here. We've been brought up in this culture where we've lived within two cultures, and we understand them clearly and comfortably, and we're okay with it, yeah. Which is a British culture, and then there's some cultural values that we inherit from our parents, from the Pakistani culture, which is not, but that's part of the respect and stuff which supports the British culture. The old school values of supporting your family, respecting your parents, and all that stuff comes with it. And just being good citizens comes from that culture. Not talking back to elders and all that kind of stuff is something that our parents taught us, not something I learned at school. Okay, so if people have come over to this country, is it because they feel that what they've seen on TV or movies compared to the culture they've lived in, where women seem to be a lot more open, maybe openly dressed, whatever it is, for them, do they think that those women are easier targets, or there must be something there that made them feel like they can get away with it, or do they feel like they're less valued or something? I don't know, but this is stuff hopefully that this report or this inquiry can dig up on and look further into. But because as a British person with Pakistani heritage, it's important for me to know, and we need to make sure that we are supportive and look at our own communities and weed this kind of crime out.
A quote from Baroness Casey. She says, "When ideology and fear prevent people from doing their job, children suffer." And I think she was acutely aware of that. I watched a number of her interviews after her report, and she's acutely aware of the temperature in the country as well, and how this could easily be used to try and generalize entire communities. Let me know what your thoughts are. Are we finally seeing accountability, or are institutions still paralyzed by fear and political correctness? Do text the show on 0411 191062 or call us on 01733 602 133. I'd love to hear from you. Do share your thoughts. This is a very serious situation. It's a very serious subject matter. So we on Let's Talk, whether it's with Ishfaq or Dr. Shabina, we will be covering this for some time. So you'll be hearing her thoughts on this subject as well next week, hopefully. But it is, like Ishfaq has just said, a heinous crime. I'm glad this report's come out. What we now need to see is concrete action for the victims. Like you said, they should be at the heart of this entire process. My understanding is that as soon as next month, we should start seeing some of these procedures to start taking place. This is when I was following it through from Yvette Cooper and others when they were talking about this and putting those motions in play from a political perspective. But of course, this is going to take some time to go through the whole system, root and branch, to see what's happened. And I feel that, like you mentioned, that the core here is the injustice that's taken place, but there needs to be accountability now.
Well,
and that needs to then result in something, a net positive change within this society, how data is managed. Like you said, every single ethnicity should be recorded. It doesn't matter what that is, where you're from, to build that bigger database to get more of an understanding. Because I can tell you, and I know what you just said there now as well, in the British Pakistani community, this is alien.
Yeah.
This is completely alien. This has nothing to do with Islam. It has nothing to do with Christianity. Because in Pakistan, there's Sikhism, there's Christianity, there's Hindus, and there's Muslims in Pakistan. This isn't taught in any of their cultures. It's not taught in any of their religions. And it's certainly not taught to any of the Pakistanis that I know. And this is not also me saying, oh, it's just a few people. I'm not saying that either. What I am saying is that you can't use a broad brush stroke here.
Well, okay, look, the people that have used the excuse that they didn't want to be racist, and I think that's a lame excuse.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
By saying that, I think they've done the Asian or Pakistani community a disservice.
Yeah, and the victims.
You know?
Yeah.
And the victims, massive disservice. I think that's a cop-out, to be honest with you, right? To use that as an excuse, we didn't want to look like we were racist, we didn't want to cause racist tension. Well, guess what? There's racial tension brewing because of this. Yeah. Because, at the moment we talk about the boats all the time. If you talk to, I talk to some of my friends and I get messages all the time. I had one just today. I was talking to an elderly lady that lives in my ward, and again, totally something different. But it came up about, I'm going to stop buying from Asda because I've just found out the guys that own it are Muslim men. It's to that extent. I was like, hold on a minute. They pay taxes. They employ thousands of people. They've invested hundreds of thousands in this money. How many people are you not going to buy from? What about the guy that owns Ashard or the guy that owns Manchester City or Muslims are invested in this country in the trillions. Yep. Okay, so to say that if they disinvest and go take their money and go, this country would be on its knees. Muslims are an intrinsic part of its fabric. Now, we're born here, third generation. We are as much shocked and hurt by this. Every child in this country and every woman in this country is our duty to protect. Okay. So I hope this report, people are prepared to swallow some hard pills and some hard truths and work together to make sure it doesn't happen again. But also, we need to look inwards,
I agree with you. I think this is definitely a time for reflection, but also action. And no doubt we'll be discussing this further on Salam Radio. We're certainly not going to shy away from this topic. It's really, really important. I can tell you, back in 2019, there was, like we mentioned earlier on about the whole taboo situation. People are like, I don't know, really should talk about this. But we really should talk about this. Look at where we are now. If other people are othering us and saying we're X, Y, and Z, okay, when we're not, why are we at least not talking about this? And that has to go beyond keyboards. Yep. People need to be sat in community centres and their mosques and they're at home with their families and friends. They have this discussion about what's taking place here. And that doesn't mean that you take personal responsibility for something you have not done. Of course not. But it's important from the perspective of having this discussion and understanding what's actually taking place here, and how we as a community need to unite and look at these things that have happened or potentially may be taking place in where we live, and how we can help organisations to tackle this crime.
I would just say one thing. It's not my Pakistani heritage that matters in this. It's the victims.
I couldn't have said it better myself, and we're actually going to an ad break now. So do stay tuned to Salam Radio 106.2 FM. You're listening to Let's Talk.
Stay tuned to Salam Radio after this short ad break.
Fancy the true taste of Middle Eastern Kurdish food? Asia Restaurant gives you the unique fusion of flavours from Turkey, Iraq, Syria and Iran. Eat in at 5 Fitzwilliam Street, Peterborough, PE1 2RU. Or order through Just Eat, Uber Eats, or order through our website, asiarestaurant.co.uk. Call us on 01733 562 530. Asia Restaurant, the true taste of the Middle East.
Busy Bunnies Nurseries is where children grow and thrive. It's where your little ones will enjoy expert care, engaging activities and a warm, welcoming environment. Busy Bunnies Nurseries also provide great learning experiences in exceptional indoor and outdoor settings. So when looking for a loving, fun and safe place for your child, visit at 627 Lincoln Road, Peterborough, now with additional parking, or online at busybunniesnurseries.co.uk. Call 01733 897799 to book your visit today. Busy Bunnies Nurseries, where children hop into a brighter future.
It's healthy, nutritional and halal. It's The Lads, your first choice for burgers, pittas, wraps and flame-grilled lamb chops and peri-peri chicken. Now with 5 fantastic new flavours, plus sides, grilled salads and milkshakes too. Open daily from 11:30 until 11 p.m. Call in at 15 Cowgate in Peterborough. Order for collection online at thelads.co.uk or by calling Peterborough 562287 or place your Lads delivery order at ubereats.co.uk.
Award-winning ST Complete Care provide all kinds of regular and respite care for your loved ones. Rated good by the CQC and with outstanding reviews, ST Complete Care will tailor their services for children and adults, including helping with personal and home care, medication assistance, visits and appointments too. With bilingual carers, ST Complete Care are also experienced with disabilities, dementia, autism, Alzheimer's and more. To arrange your free assessment, call 01733 303300. Caring for you the way you want.
There's simply a variety of choice at Chicken Valley, 318 Lincoln Road. And we don't just mean whether you dine in or order for takeaway or delivery. With halal dishes including peri-peri chicken, wings, strips and wraps, Korean burgers, sides, milkshakes and so much more. You'll have to experience Chicken Valley again and again and again. Open 11 a.m. until late, every day of the week. Order delivery via Just Eat, Uber or Food Hub. Or for collection, call Chicken Valley on 01733 564 053.
बेहतरीन कीमतों में काबिले भरोसा टैक्सी। जी हाँ, अमार कैब से रोजमर्रा का सफर हुआ आसान। सिर्फ £3.99 से शुरू। हीथ्रो एयरपोर्ट के लिए £120, गेटविक £150, बर्मिंघम £92, लंदन स्टैनफोर्ड एंड लंदन लूटन के लिए £88। हम प्राइवेट स्कूल रन्स और एग्जीक्यूटिव बिजनेस क्लास ड्रॉप ऑफ्स भी देते हैं। बुकिंग बहुत आसान। हमारी वेबसाइट www.amarcabs.com पर जाएं, 01733555888 पर कॉल करें या हमारी ऐप डाउनलोड करें। iOS और एंड्रॉइड दोनों पर अवेलेबल है। चंद ही क्लिक्स में आपकी टैक्सी बुक हो जाएगी। आरामदेह और कम कीमत सफर की बेहतरीन चॉइस, अमार कैब्स।
Craving authentic Desi flavors? Look no further than Desi Restaurant. From midday until 1 in the morning, enjoy our homemade specialties that will transport your taste buds. Indulge in tantalizing papri chaat and savor the rich Chersi Kadahi. Treat your friends to our fresh 1 kilogram Chersi lamb handi. Plus, get 2 12-inch pizzas for $11.95. Located at 298 Lincoln Road, we deliver from lunchtime until 1 a.m. Call 01733 555 795 now to order and experience Desi Restaurant's flavors.
You're listening to Peterborough's community radio, Salam Radio. Salam Radio.
106.2 FM.
Welcome back to Let's Talk, live on Salam Radio 106.2 FM. I'm your host, Akil, in the studio with my co-host, the wonderful Ishfaq. We've just finished talking about grooming gangs, a topic that we will continue to explore throughout 2025, I have no doubt, Ishfaq. So up next is Kemi Badenoch and the burqa. Yeah, let's discuss this. This blends culture, politics, identity. Her comments about the burqa. Essentially, Equalities Minister Kemi Badenoch has the leader opposition has reignited a sensitive debate by saying she wouldn't meet with a constituent wearing a face covering such as a burqa or a balaclava. She justified this on the grounds of security and the need for transparent communication. She also said employers should be allowed to prohibit face coverings in the workplace. Now, why does this matter? Well, the UK is home to over 3.5 million Muslims, and for many Muslim women, wearing the niqab or burqa is an expression of their religious faith. The burqa covers the entire body with a mesh over the eyes. The niqab leaves the eyes visible but covers the rest of the face. Unlike France or Belgium, the UK has not banned face coverings in public. However, 2010 UK equality laws allow certain limits for security or identification purposes. Now, this has got some historical echoes, Ishfaq. There was a debate in 2018 where Boris Johnson, caused controversy where he compared burqa-wearing women to letterboxes and bank robbers. Supporters of Badenoch argue transparency is key in civic dialogue and face coverings could pose a challenge in sensitive professional or legal settings. Critics argue her comments target Muslim women disproportionately, they fuel Islamophobic sentiments and reinforce stereotypes. And the Muslim Council of Britain called her remarks, and I quote, an attempt to stigmatise Muslim communities under the guise of liberal values, end quote. Now, we have to look at this from a wider context, this right. Badenoch also criticised parallel legal systems and cousin marriages, linking them to poor integration outcomes, while some health professionals have raised legitimate concerns about genetic conditions linked to cousin marriages. Critics say such remarks generalise entire communities. Now, a public opinion, a poll was done in 2019, YouGov poll, showed that 59% of Britons supported some form of face covering ban, but among younger people and ethnic minorities, the number dropped significantly. So, do you think Kemi Badenoch's remarks about integration and equality, or do they cross the line into discrimination? Or should the state have any say in religious dress? Do let me know on 01733602133 or text the show on 07411 101062. Ishfaq, does Kemi Badenoch's remarks, do you think they're about integration and equality, or do you think this is discrimination?
I think there's a level of education needed. So I, again, get very frustrated when it comes to politicians and, say, double standards, or, 1 minute we're screaming about freedom of speech, the right to have freedom of speech, and the next minute we want to, have the freedom to offend someone, okay, or offend someone's faith. But at the same time, when it comes to other faiths, we're, cut down for saying anything remotely, not even offensive, but just because it's talking about a certain country or faith. So there is a lot of double standards in politics, unfortunately. With Kemi's remark, look, had someone said to her, well, actually, when a Muslim woman comes and speaks to you in your surgery, and she was speaking about her surgery here, she would remove, if there's someone that wears a veil, she's allowed to take it off in the setting where there's other women present. If there was another man or other men, present within that office or setting, then she wouldn't, and she would probably ask to meet with Kemi and maybe some of her advisors or admin staff separately. With women, and she would take it off anyway. What happens when women go through security checks at airports. So a lot of the time there's women there, and so they're taken to one side and they would do the ID checks or whatever, and they're allowed to, obviously for the sake of security, unveil themselves. So it's not. And well, the other thing is, look, what percentage of Muslim women actually veil themselves nowadays within this country? I would say 1-2%. You know, I'd love to know the figures, but I would be surprised if it's more than 1-2%.
Yeah.
In the same way, maybe Kemi would feel uncomfortable with someone, you know, having face coverings, trying to talk to her. Okay, fair enough. Everyone has their own opinion. I would probably feel uncomfortable if someone came to see me and didn't want to show me their face. But obviously, if it was a woman, I'd have to respect that and expect them to be veiled if they wanted to be. That's their choice. At the same right, if Kemi had some man turn up in a mankini, or yourself turn up in a mankini, I reckon she'd be probably more uncomfortable with that than a woman sitting in front of her with a veil.
Definitely me, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I think there needs to be more about understanding, more about tolerance, and just freedom of choice. When people say freedom of choice, these women are not oppressed. You know, if my sisters chose, or my wife or my mum chose to wear the veil, it's her choice, their choice. Nothing to do with me, nothing about me telling them to do it. Men don't have no right to tell women what to wear in this country or in Islam. They have their own choice. So those women that choose to wear it is part of their identity. It's part of their recognition, and it's up to them. So I would always support women that want to wear a veil. It's up to them.
Some might say that the covering of the face completely, with just the eyes visible, doesn't work in all settings in this country. And so, for example, if you're going to the hospital, as you mentioned about if you're in an airport, if you're at a train station, there has to be some areas where part of British society, you have to, essentially remain unveiled.
Well, if it's a security setting, obviously, then...
But even just in hospitals, so essentially you're always visible at those times because of where you are, what type of support you're seeking. Those service providers would want to see your face at all times.
I think it'd be a choice. It makes sense what you're saying, but it's up to the individual. If the woman feels uncomfortable doing that, it's her choice, right?
Yeah, I get that. But I mean, I remember, I've had some comments come through here already tonight. People are saying, this is not normal. This is not British. That's coming across quite a few times. A lot of people say this is not British to have your face covered the entire time, especially when you're using services.
It's a fair comment, and that I think that's up to the women. I keep saying, when we say freedom of choice, it has to be freedom of choice for everyone.
Freedom of choice for everybody. Okay, so let me just go back a bit. Okay, so Kemi's talking about.
Wait, sorry. Okay, so the freedom of choice there is when you're talking about services. So if a lady goes in, like Kemi said, this is going back to Kemi's point, right? A lady goes in to see a doctor, and the doctor says, "I need to see you or see your face to diagnose your illness or ailment or whatever," and she doesn't choose to uncover, he can't provide that level of service for her, right?
Correct.
So then that's her choice, and it's his choice then to refuse her or say, move along, next patient. Am I right?
Yeah.
So it's her choice to then get the treatment or not get the treatment, and her choice of how important it is for her to then remain veiled or to not be veiled.
Yeah.
And I suppose there's certain circumstances when for these women where that's allowed. I don't know. I'm not a professional
Do you think that we will end up in a France type situation where they'll ban it at some point?
Well, I hope they don't, because look, at the end of the day, sometimes I find what people wear offensive myself. Someone might wear a t-shirt I'll find offensive, but it's their freedom of choice what they want to wear. Sometimes there's guys walking down the road with no t-shirts on and shorts, and it's not exactly the most a nice sight. Some women might find that offensive, but it's their choice. I want to see people strutting around half naked on our streets? No, I don't. But at the end of the day, it's their choice. It's the country we live in.
It's the country that we live in. Okay, we move on then. Thank you for that. I'm sure this conversation, this topic will only continue to roll forwards, especially because Kemi's very, very, very passionate about this. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so we're moving on to Rachel Reeves' spring statement. So let's just shift to domestic economics here, Ishfaq. Last week now, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, delivered a spring statement in her first major announcement since Labour's election win. Reeves promised a new fiscal strategy centred on growth, stability and investment. Her highlights include £5 billion in public sector cuts, spread across multiple departments, protection of the triple lock on pensions, investment in green energy, defence, social housing and AI research, no increase in VAT, income tax or NI contributions. A new wealth fund seeded with £7.3 billion to drive infrastructure. Inflation has cooled to 2.3%, but real wages are still recovering from 2022's cost of living crisis. According to the IFS, public services face efficiency pressures, and Reeves' budget leaves little fiscal headroom. And she said she must restore credibility and unlock growth. Britain cannot afford more chaos. Ishfaq, I mean, the reaction to that statement has been as follows. Resolution Foundation said it's a cautious budget that prioritises fiscal rules. NHS Confederation said they warned that frontline services will struggle without more investment. And business leaders welcomed clarity on energy and transition plans. What I will say is, when I was doing research of this show, I actually spoke to a number of people who nearly all of them said about the NHS specifically, this is not being run. The amount of money that has been poured into the NHS, this is not being run in the most optimal way at all. There is so much wastage that continuously pouring more money into the NHS is not going to resolve the issue. But over to you, I'll say one more thing and I'll pass it over to you. Reeves claims that the average family will be £500 better off due to a childcare reforms, fuel duty freeze and energy rebates. Critics say that doesn't account for local authority hikes in tax and housing costing inflation. Let me ask you then, Ishfaq, when you see this Labour Chancellor stand up there, after 14 years of Tory rule, after a year in power, what was your take about this statement and where we're heading?
Well, all I can tell you at the moment is what the man on the street or the lady on the street thinks, and from what I gauge from people within the ward that I used to represent, which is that they were promised change. I mean, the biggest word in the last general election was change, change in the NHS, reform in the NHS. People would feel better off. And at the moment, over the last year, they've felt worse done by. There's families that are struggling. The NHS is not in a better position as much as anyone might say. That there's still big waiting lists. Like you said, there is money being poured into the NHS. It's still, I think, top heavy. They've tried to be, should I say, safe with the budget, but at the same time, it's not. There's nothing radical to improve the country. There's nothing radical to make a difference in people's lives. There's nothing radical when it comes to defence. I believe that we need more money invested in defence for this country. There's not enough of that happening.
You say that, but obviously, of course, they're increasing the budget for defence. I guess what you're trying to say is still not enough, right?
It's not enough, and it's over the increase is over a very long period of time.
It is, yeah.
They're saying 20, 35, 10 years.
Yeah.
In 10 years, with tech changing the way it is, we'd be left way behind.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. And I forgive me, I can't recall the person's name. I think it was an MP. And I think it was a former defence minister. I can't recall now. But I was listening to an element of his speech during the week, and he was talking about how they've got this tank. It's worth £20 million or whatever it is, and a kid with a $1,000 drone from miles away could blow that up. Yeah. And he was talking about how the UK needs to respond in a different way in order to give the tools that the army and the armed forces require to face off new threats in the world. And if you look at what's happened in Syria, if you have a look at what's happened in Gaza, if you have a look at what's happening now in Iran, which we're going to talk about afterwards, but if you look at other parts of the world where there is a war or otherwise taking place, what you're seeing is the arsenal of some of these countries being tested. And in real time, another example would be the India-Pakistan recently when they've had their flare-up, where you had Chinese technology being used by the Pakistanis and to great effect.
French technology used by the Indians.
Used by the Indians. And so what we're seeing is these countries, other countries, testing out should we say, the supply countries of their weapons.
It's almost like they're testing the capabilities and
Correct.
using these proxy wars as their test beds.
Correct. I mean,
You know?
obviously, we're not conspiracy theorists, but I totally get you. You know, and if you look at the types of weaponry required to take out particular types of infrastructure, you realise that this type of technology only comes from certain parts of the world. So going back to what we're saying about Labour is, okay, you know, the armed forces need to be properly supported, but as you mentioned, over such a long period of time, is it going to have that much of an effect? But, you know, I'll counter that with, where's all this new money coming from, right? And, you know, they've been in power for a year. We are going to do a special show on this, but I get it. They had a lot of work to do in terms of trying to fix areas that were broken by the Tories, which you also agree with.
Well, I will say one thing there. I've got bored, absolutely bored.
Of them saying you've been left with something.
No, of them, a 20 billion black hole. You know, every time they speak, there's always the excuses for everything is this 20 billion black hole, right? And I'm like, hold on. There's fiscal studies that prove that is not the case. Okay, that's not me saying. I'm no economist. I'm not sitting here as an economist. But there's fiscal studies that say that is not the case. So stop using that as an excuse and lying. So the public is hard done by because we have politicians standing up saying, "Oh, £20 million black hole." That is your one-liner for everything. Get over it. Come on. You've had a year in power. Where's the delivery?
Okay, that's Ishfaq. Ishfaq is saying, Labour, you've had a year in power. What's really changed? If you're on the red team, of course, you can drop us a message, 07411 191062, or call us on 01733 602 133. I'll come on the live stream, of course you can. We've got somebody called Abu Ahmed saying hello Abu, thanks for the message. But if you are of a particular political persuasion, I managed to say that, Ishfaq. Then we'd love to hear from you. What are your thoughts on Labour 1 year? I'm sure we're going to have a deep dive into that soon as well. But yeah, look, I take your point. I do. I feel like, but however, what I will say is that they were left a huge mess. You cannot deny that. Let's put the 20 billion to one side.
When you look at the energy crisis, when you look at COVID. 2-3 years.
We can look at COVID, mate. Look how much money got wasted in COVID.
It did get wasted, but it was a new thing. It was, how do you deal with it in the best way?
Well, I'll tell you what, but not writing off everything, and then when the poor man on the street's got to pay something back, you can't write that off, can you, Rishi? Okay, well, it looks like we're going to have to bring some heat to that conversation, don't you worry. Rishi Sunak, if you are listening, we'd love to call us 01733603133 and get your mate Boris on as well. Okay, we're heading now towards the last segment of the show. So what we'll do now is we'll actually dive into the Israel attacks Iran conversation. Okay, so a major development on the international stage, Israel launched a significant military strike on Iran, the largest in over a decade. Operation Rising Lion, as it has been dubbed by the Israeli media, began on the morning of June the 13th. The Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, targeted over 100 military drone and nuclear-related sites across Iran. This comes in response to a suspected Iranian-sponsored cyber attack that took down the Israeli water infrastructure 2 weeks earlier. Now, the confirmed developments are over 600 Iranian casualties, including both military personnel and civilians. Iran retaliated with a volley of Shabab-3 ballistic missiles. One missile hit a hospital in southern Israel, injuring 230 people. Global oil prices spiked by 8% overnight due to fears of regional escalation. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said, "This is not just deterrence. This is a disarmament. Iran will not be allowed to threaten our sovereignty with impunity." Now, Iran's foreign minister replied, "This is a declaration of war. We reserve the right to respond with full force." Now, there has been world reaction, Ishfaq. The UN Security Council held an emergency meeting, but no resolution was passed. The US urged restraint, but reaffirmed its commitment to Israel's security. And Russia and China condemned Israel's actions, calling it a violation of international law. But there has been wider concern. Hezbollah in Lebanon has begun mobilizing. Syria has placed its air defenses on alert. The Gulf Cooperation Council has called for calm. And there's also a humanitarian crisis. UNICEF reports that over 45,000 people have been displaced in Tehran alone due to fear of further strikes. Now, for you, is this Israel defending itself or escalating a conflict that could spiral? What role should the UK or global community play here? Do let us know. You can text us on 07411 191062, or you can call us on 01733 602133, or comment on the live stream, Facebook, YouTube, X, or Twitch. Ishfaq.
So, I'll give you a little thing on this. So, look, the one key thing from this show, whenever we speak, I think is talking about double standards and hypocrisy, whether it's in the media, whether it's in the political framework, whether it's international or on a local or national level. And it seems to happen all the time, and it irritates me. But look, I'll say one thing, or I'll say a couple of things. Israel attacked Iran first. That's the fact. Okay? So whereas before politicians were saying Israel has a right to defend itself, where's the ones calling out for Iran has a right to defend itself? Israel bombed the Iranian consulate in Syria, violating international and diplomatic law, and that was way before this even started. So for people to say, they've been supporting Hamas, or they've been supporting, I can't remember what the other one's called now. That's how good we are. Hezbollah. I don't know that, but that's what they'll accuse them of. But then they've also accused them of many other things.
They were saying that it was imminent that the Iranians have reached that stage where they can prepare a nuclear bomb. It was imminent.
What's ironic is that you get Netanyahu coming on TV saying how Iran have bombed near this hospital where there was a school across the road, and I was like, hold on a minute, you've bombed 8 hospitals in Gaza with impunity, you've bombed schools, you've bombed people waiting in line, so
and continue to do so.
Yeah, but yet you're talking about in Israel one time. Come on, total hypocrisy on the side of Israel when it comes to this.
Just to add to that bit there as well, I think it's really important to state as well, the Americans were actually in the middle of negotiations with the Iranians. This didn't need to happen.
It didn't need to.
But there is commentary based around that Netanyahu did this to stop this from actually taking place, and of course thinking of his own career. This is some of the messages that are coming in now.
I totally believe that, because had that gone through, he wouldn't have had another war to carry on with. Look, at the end of the day, the Israel military and its leaders are being investigated by the ICC and the ICHR. Human rights. They're using children as human shields when they were talking about Gazans or Hamas having children or human shields, which wasn't the case. People in hospital are not human shields; they're patients. Mm-hmm. Okay, they've bombed refugees. They've done all sorts in Gaza. They are on the watch list. They're being complained about to the United Nations, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, UN Human Rights Office, UNICEF, UNHCR, Save the Children, World Food Programme, WHO, Doctors Without Borders, Refugee International, International Rescue, Care International, Christian Aid, all say Israel is committing a systematic genocide, yet we've got politicians who are scared of saying that word, okay? But then getting back to what's happening with Israel and Iran. Israel has nuclear weapons, but hasn't signed the International Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Iran has. Israel has broken the Atmosphere Test Ban Treaty. Iran hasn't. Israel doesn't allow IAEA inspections. Iran does. Israel has nuclear weapons, like I just said, and Iran hasn't. So which is the destabilizing force in the region? Which country pushed for the Iraq war, claiming that they had WMDs? Israel. So the Iraq war was caused by them on the same line as what we're seeing now. Again, 10, 15 years later.
It's quite unbelievable seeing these scenes where you've got millions of people in Tehran trying to leave the city. You've got Donald Trump talking about taking out the supreme leader, but not just yet. 2 weeks' time, he's going to let the world know what he's going to do. You've got carnage taking place across Iran, and now obviously in parts of Israel as well, which have been hit as well. I think what we're seeing here is another destabilizing event taking place in the Middle East.
Thanks to Israel.
Yeah.
And the irony is that while the people in Gaza live in this open-air prison and are trapped and cannot escape because the borders are closed, Israelis that have flown there or purport to be part of that land have second homes in other countries or first homes where they can fly out to.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. It's a harrowing situation, and I just hope a ceasefire comes into place as soon as possible and stops all this bloodshed. We often, me and you were on this, when we have our shows, we often reflect on the fact that the world feels like it's in a very dark place. And that's it, really. We've run out of time. Thank you, Vishwak. Thank you for joining me on Let's Talk, live here on Salam Radio 106.2 FM. We've tackled some hard-hitting issues tonight, from systemic child abuse and cultural politics to national budgets and international warfare. If you missed any of the show, catch the replay on our social media channels. Of course, you can find them by just looking for Salam Radio. But until then, stay safe, stay informed, keep talking. Assalamu alaikum.